Okay, here we go with functions of Congress, and we're going to start out with models of representation. This means these are the various ways that a congressman makes decisions in Congress. They either make decisions as a trustee or as an instructed delegate. When they're making decisions and voting or representing you as a trustee, they're voting and following their own conscience. So when they're deciding issue positions, they decide based on what they think is best, not necessarily what the folks back home want them to do. This does happen sometimes, that the decision they make is in contradiction to the folks back home, what they want. The other way they vote is as an instructed delegate. This is when they vote the way their constituents want them to vote. So that's the way the folks back home have pushed, and this is the way we want you to vote on this issue. Usually they're going to vote as an instructed delegate when it's a high-profile issue that the people back home consider very important, and they're watching to make sure that the representative is voting the way they want them to. As a trustee, the rest of the time, they're more mundane, boring matters that they're voting on. Constituents really don't care that much. They would be voting as a trustee. And then sometimes they vote as a politician party member, and they're voting with their party, the way the party wants them to vote. All right, next we're going to talk about another function of Congress, and that is pork barrel and earmarks. This is how they deal with bringing projects back home to the folks back home. Pork barrel, or pork, refers to not an actual barrel in Congress, but a source of funds that congressmen can earmark or dub for their district. And when they do this, they're bringing home money and funds to put people in their district to work, usually on a project. You know, it could be roads, bridges, something that's going to benefit the district. It's called bringing home the bacon. Sometimes it's spent on ridiculous projects, like we talked about, the Teapot Museum, or some things that we would consider ridiculous. But usually the money would be spent on meaningful, important things. The other is earmarks. Earmarks are just the designation, just the indication on a spending bill that I'm getting this money for my district. Casework is next. Casework is just simply helping the folks back home out. If you want a flag that flew over the Capitol building, if you want grandma's Social Security check tracked down, if it's a veteran and they aren't getting proper treatment, if it's a citizen, a constituent in your district who wants help getting a visa for a relative to come visit them, these are examples of casework. And here's a new word, ombudsperson. The congressman is acting in the role of ombudsperson when they do this for the constituents. That's a definition, is an elected leader who acts as an advocate for citizens. Okay, next slide, oversight. Oversight is the way Congress checks the executive branch. They oversee, it's a check on the executive branch. They make sure that the agencies and departments in the executive branch, and we call these agencies and departments the bureaucracy, that they're doing their job. Congress does this in 4 ways. With congressional hearings, where they call people in and ask them questions in committee meetings, people from the executive agencies and departments. Confirmation hearings, where they interview and question potential appointees. Members of the Senate has that power of advice, advice and consent to approve appointments made by the president. Investigations to check on how policy is being implemented and to investigate wrongdoing. An example of this would be investigating Watergate. Special committees were put together to investigate what happened, what Nixon's people had done, why they had done it, who had given them approval to do this. And last, budget appropriations. Remember, Congress controls the purse. Congress determines the budgets for those agencies in the executive branch. and Congress can giveth and taketh away. So that's a very important check that it has on the executive branch. Next is agenda setting. The responsibility of Congress to set the agenda, what they're going to be seriously looking at, what issues they're going to be seriously looking at when they meet. It should represent, what's on the agenda should represent what the people are most concerned about. Of course, there are times when the agenda can be affected by interest groups who are making enough noise and getting enough attention that they also get on the agenda. An example in our book was gay rights pressure that led Congress to eliminate the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy on gays in the military. So when they make enough, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's what happens sometimes with groups that want to get on that agenda. Managing societal conflict. There's always conflict in society. There are always groups that are in opposition to each other. So Congress has to carry on with the function of compromise and negotiating on issues where there are divided groups bickering with each other. Also, representatives are becoming more and more ideological. So it's not just the American public, but it's also the representatives and congressmen and senators who we have extremists, conservatives, extreme liberals, due to, in part, especially in the House, to districts that are drawn so that they are safe. They know that they'll be reelected. So they can be extreme to the max, and those people in that district are going to support them because those people in the district also share those beliefs. All right, that takes us through managing societal conflict, and we are done.